Today, we're talking about what it really takes to build a student ready college with Dr. Michelle Nelson of Macomb County Community College. This is a massive mindset shift that stops asking if students are ready for college and instead asks if colleges are ready for students. Our guest, Dr. Nelson, is the Dean of Student Success at Macomb County Community College. She's a native Detroiter and the first in her family to earn a PhD. She has over 20 years of experience across both academic and student affairs, where she is committed to breaking down some systemic barriers and building a campus culture centered around the needs of students. In this episode, we'll be unpacking a few big ideas. We're going to talk about why shifting from a reactive approach to a proactive one completely changes the game when it comes to catching students early. We'll dive into a hidden curriculum of higher education and look at how the unwritten rules of college can trip up first generation and adult learners if we don't actively dismantle them. Michelle explains how smart data visibility doesn't replace human relationships, but actually acts as the ultimate enabler to create meaningful touch points. And finally, we discuss why student success takes a village and why it is not just the business of student services, but a college-wide effort. Welcome to Next Practices. I'm so happy to speak with you today.
Yes, thank you for having me here.
So we'd like to start by having you introduce yourself to our audience. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do to impact student and institutional success.
Yeah, I serve as the Dean of Student Success here at Macomb Community College here in Michigan. And my work focuses on, I describe it as creating systems, not just services, to help students persist, whether that is to help them start, stay, or succeed. I believe that my job is to help close equity gaps here at the institution and really help the student experience, students thrive in their experience at the college and as they prepare to move on into their communities.
Yeah, I think I love how you describe that you're not just developing services, but that you're developing a system. And that really aligns closely with how we as Civitas Learning think about it. But that is such, I mean, we might have already gotten the title of the episode right here at the top because it's such an impactful way to think about the work that you do to help students thrive during their experience.
Absolutely. You know, because my work and the team that support the dean's office, you know, they are doing work from advising to student engagement to career services. And so if we look at those and as well as well-being, I will add well-being in our student conduct team. But when you look at that, we can always, it can be in silo or it can be in this ecosystem that's really trying to find ways in which we support students early, often, and along their student journey. So for me, I kind of changed my mantra or changed my philosophy and not just talking about student services, but as the dean, as the strategic leader of this area, it's my job to really foster and really look at it through that systemic lens. And that's what I've been about, you know, throughout my career, I will say.
Yeah, we had the pleasure of having an earlier conversation, and I've met you a few times. And in our earlier conversation, one of the primary focuses that you mentioned was this, like the shift from the institutional stance that we usually see of like reactive care to proactive care, and moving away from um, ideas of like, you know, uh, academic dismissal as a consequence and a conclusion of an experience versus early intervention at the beginning of an experience. And you've noted that many students, especially part-time students and first generation students, have sort of a hidden curriculum and many systematic barriers that make their path feel ambiguous, confusing, challenging. How has your team used data? I think you use the term data as an enabler to see
Mhm.
those barriers early, and how does that early warning change the way your team is interacting with students before even the student themselves might realize that they're off track?
Sure. what I like to think about with students is that it is not their fault they're getting caught in the trap of our bureaucratic or our systematic the loop of college. We talk about in our at our institution among my colleagues, we talk about this notion of the rules of the game. And oftentimes students may or may not know all the rules of the game, whether that's from degree catalog that you're on to the number of credit hours, etc. And so one of the things that I think, with this whole early warning and really using data to really use it in a proactive way is to really get in front of those indicators, right? We have what are called leading and lagging. That's kind of the language we use. But if we begin to look at more of those, I call it those micro behaviors that come up, early. It's about not looking at the student and saying, "Oh, you're failing the class." No, "Oh, you missed class or two, your attendance, you missed this quiz." Let's begin to talk about, opportunities that we can support you early and do that early. So the data enables us to look at populations at I want to say at a large scale. And it's through that large scale, we were able to develop triggers or develop action items or opportunities where we can reach out throughout. We are an institution of over 27,000 students, between our for credit and our workforce community. So we don't have the capacity or the manpower to actually reach every student every single day. And so leveraging data early and often will allow us to really begin to see who's on track, who's off track, what are we noticing, and begin to create opportunities where we can build those relationships. Data tells us they give us the indicators, but they don't tell us the student story. So when we can reach out and be curious and partner with that student early and often, then we are able to create that momentum, as I call it, that psychological momentum for students to know and trust that there is someone watching their back, someone's part of their village, whether they raise their hands or not.
Yeah, I love your usage of the word village, and it came up in our prior conversation as like a center point of the way that you and your institution conceptualize the work that you're doing. And it goes to that system, not services approach. You are exactly right. I think sometimes when we start thinking about data and technology, the concern is that it's going to move us further away from relationship with students, that it's like automating interactions when really it's automating those transactional pieces to allow more space for the relationship, because you've mentioned this, that students really crave that relationship, and those institutional touch points should really be natural relationship builders rather than forced administrative hurdles. For example, like, I'm going to put a hold on your account so you'll come see me, and really the students just thinking I'm trying to get the hold off my account versus I'm going to see someone who's going to help me and help me be successful here at the institution. Can you describe, what actually makes those touch points meaningful versus just another automated outreach, and how do those moments help your students develop a sense of belonging and academic identity rather than just kind of checking off that box and moving on to the next step?
Sure. Again, data tells us who needs support. It's the
Mhm.
relationship that actually can change the outcome. It can change the projection of where a student might find themselves, and it can turn the tide. So data, again, it enables us, it supports us in getting that automated understanding of not just that one student, but maybe what are the characteristics of such specific group. Um, for me, one of the things that I really try to support my team and really encourage them to lean in is this whole concept of a meaningful touch point. How do we help students feel recognized, not just contacted? So it's not about going after the student and saying, "Hey, you're failing a class," or "Hey, you missed," or "Hey, I got this alert on you." but it really comes down to making sure that meaningful touch point is relevant, is timely, and is personalized. The data, when you look at data, you're not looking at one data point, and that's what I do like about the Civitas platform and what we're able to extract from it. It also gives us an opportunity to look at the data, look at historical our notes, our conversations, what the student came in for, and begin to, before I make that phone call, before I send that email, I can, you know, gather the story of that student and then make sure it's personalized, make sure it's relevant. So those type of moments and those type of touch points will build the relationship before, the student think that this is an actual contact per se. And so again, it will help us with that momentum, that trust, that sense of belonging. I would say another thing that my colleagues, because I work in student services, oftentimes, you forget that your faculty is that partner. The faculty might be noticing certain things. So as we build those relationships with our faculty in the academic areas, we're able to kind of piece that village together, and the faculty are also empowered to kind of step up, share, raise the alarm on this particular student so that we can do that outreach and check in with those students.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this in our earlier conversation, and I would like to dig in a little bit on faculty's role. I know for like many institutions, getting faculty to be part of the village is a real challenge that stumps a lot of our partners. And oftentimes we actually see interesting trend. This is not like research based or anything, but just a trend that I've seen amongst our own customers is that oftentimes community colleges have a leg up on four-year institutions and building faculty partnership, which is interesting. I think I'd be curious to know how one of the things we talked about is that it's about student success and student well-being are really really correlated, that if a student is in a mental health crisis and they're also in an academic crisis, and we know that they're in a retention crisis if they have a medical emergency or an emergency in their family. I know when I was an advisor, those were huge red flags on academic success and their ability to move through. So it requires institutions to kind of think in this holistic ecosystem where the responsibilities are shared across the entire institution. How is your institution kind of expanded the meaning of support, and then how does that unified viewpoint of like student data and student experience empower faculty to be part of that village?
Yeah. So we believe faculty don't just deliver academic content. They are our critical partners. They are the ones that might get the phone call, I'm missing class because XYZ is occurring in my life, or they are failing because XYZ, I didn't get, I don't have all of my, I have a disability, but I don't want to share it with anyone. So,
Mhm.
allowing for faculty to know that they are empowered to report and share and know that we are going to respond and we're going to walk with them through that process is very important. I'll give an example that we kind of have changed, our academic alert process. For example, in the past, our academic alerts, oftentimes the faculty would send the academic alert, and then an email would be automatically generated to say that from the dean's office, you are having troubles in this particular class, and we need you to go to the library. Well, you missed about three different points or touch points or relationships that student have already formed. You missed a touch point of the faculty, you missed a touch point of the advisor, the navigator, who can deliver that same type of information. So what we did was we actually shrunk or reduced that type of message where it doesn't come from the dean immediately. It actually comes right back from that faculty like, hey, this is Professor. Susie, and I'm concerned about your academic success. So we actually have began to see a shift as far as how many times the students open or respond or even head to the tutoring center in order to get the support that they need because it came from their faculty. It didn't come from three levels up in the title of someone that I don't even know or have ever come in contact with. So that is an example of how we are leveraging our faculty to be more critical partners in the work we do or work around student success. And also our philosophy or our vice president, she talks a lot about faculty, they are managing their own caseload. The caseload they're
Mhm.
managing is 30 students in a 15-week class, and they see those students twice a week, three times a week, and they have many times or point or touch points throughout the semester that they are engaging with the students. So why not leverage, that information, or why not leverage that partnership and make it easy for faculty to report, make it easy for faculty to raise their hand and say, hey, I need some support, or this person might need some additional support. And then we partner along the way.
Yeah, they get so much face time with students and build relationships, and students have so much respect for them. Leveraging that natural relationship it makes a lot of sense. And it's been curious because it's always been a challenge at a lot of institutions. And I think building that partnership's key.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's perfect at Macomb. I mean, we have a lot of work to do, but that is something that we are becoming more intentional to be inclusive with our faculty, our vice president and our provost. They work very, very closely. Oftentimes, we are on each other's team, when it comes to different strategic initiatives. You need someone from student services, you need someone from academics. So we try to maintain a really collaborative relationship and a transparent relationship because we know that without the other, the students are the ones that's going to fall short or could be the casualty to their success.
Yeah. When we spoke before, you shared that a major part of the work you and your team do is centered on the student ready college philosophy. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that philosophy, I think probably most of the audience is, but for those of you who are not, that philosophy um, talks about moving the burden of readiness from the student to the institution. And you've
Mhm.
pointed out that we often assume that adult students should know how to navigate things like grade appeals and faculty outreach, and which isn't the case, which like we talked about earlier in our conversation. So how is access to data and like being able to see the students like holistic experience in one place helping to sort of dismantle those those like institutional barriers and helping to shift the burden of readiness from the student more to the institution so that you can continue to foster that mindset of growth from student and faculty and getting them to see that it's really the institution's role to set up systems for students.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm really big on asset-based approach and not really leaning into the deficit. I think the antiquated way in looking at student success is to say, are they student ready, are they academically prepared, do they have the right finances, are they mentally ready, but we know that students have so many other priorities, competing priorities, whether they are as adult students, have children at home and parents at home that they're taking care of, like that generation where they're managing a full-time job and going to school, etc. So one of the things that I believe is that, reducing that blame on the students and that they didn't get something right or they didn't get this right. And so what we began to do is looking at the data, and I use this term. I didn't coin the term. It's not my term, but it's so relative. There is this notion of toxic combinations. We know
Mhm.
that students, they get a degree plan, and we want them to follow their degree plan. from the start, take just your base, your English and your math, then you build on, and then you build on. Well, sometimes that may not work for their life situation or their schedule. And so they find themselves saying, okay, but no, I want to take math and accounting and chemistry all in one semester. And so, what the data can help us do and has helped us do is say, hey, what students are taking math and psych chemistry and biology at the same time. They're taking what we could call this toxic combination. It's not the typical path that is prescribed to them in their degree plan. And let's get in front of that. Although I may not be able to change the student's decision on taking those classes at the same time because it just fits their schedule and they're just bound and determined to do it. But I can put in front of you the math class that has supplemental instruction, right? Or I can put in front of you the tutoring schedule. So you have access to tutoring from day one. Hey, I'm here because I noticed you're taking these classes and I think you might need some additional support. Again, looking at that data without judgment, right? Because we don't know why the student is taking that combination of classes. May not fit for me. I was definitely not the biology major, but um, but that's what they have chosen to do. Now we can have that conversation, redirect them to the path that they need to go on. But if not, what resources can we get in front of them? So we also, through the using the data, we create advising campaigns. So, having timely campaigns go out or timely communication is another thing that we're doing to make sure that we get in front of the student. One more population, I'll just give another example, is our students who we may find on academic notice. Those are students who may have not did so great and they've been placed on academic notice. It's too late at the end of the semester to reach out to students who are on academic notice of that following semester and say, hey, how did your semester go? Did you turn things around? That's too late.
Mhm.
Students who are on academic notice, they need outreach, the beginning, the middle, and they need time and relevant messages to them. Have you been going to tutoring? Do you have an academic success plan? Come see me. You're on notice. What does academic notice mean? Oftentimes, well, I made it. I barely passed, but I'm in the next semester, so I think I'm okay. So the goal is to, again, address the signals, address the symptoms before it becomes a crisis. It's a crisis when a student is on academic probation. We know that that means they have one more or two more semesters left before it could be detrimental for of their completion. So it's very important for us to get ahead of that, and the data kind of will help us begin to identify, again, I call it those subpopulations, those characteristics that we might see that might have those risk indicators, and provide that meaningful outreach to those students.
It's such a critical part of moving from that reactive to proactive. Like at the end of the semester, you're exactly right. It's too late. That's the treating it's almost like just treating the symptoms without treating the cause. It's just triaging the emergency once it's happened. And yes, there are definitely students can't catch them all, and there's a need for that. But man, think of how much more success if we can get ahead and get students the resources that they need when they need them at the right time. The relevant, right resources targeted to their particular needs can be really powerful.
Yes, and especially at a community college, we don't have them for 4 years, 4 to 6 years. I mean, oftentimes we want our students to kind of graduate within 2 to 3 years, if possible, or they're solid in their decision, they're solid on their track, and so we don't have a lot of a room for the student to kind of just sit here and really go through their college experience or go through their path blind. So again, here at the community college, we're serving our community. We want to make sure that we are also want to make sure that they're thriving. And thriving means that we have to be very intentional. We have to be able to see those indicators and be okay with um, outreaching and being proactive and making those points. And there's a balance between doing all this outreach, right? There's a balance between
Mhm.
doing all this outreach and making sure we're not over communicating and overreaching. So that's why it's very important for those touch points to be very targeted, very focused. We're not going to reach all 20,000 students, every single day or every single semester. But, when we have the intentionality, what's the cadence look like for what we call, students in our start category, students who are working, they're just starting at the college. Those particular needs look different
Mhm.
than students who have 45 credits or more, and they should be on their way out. They should be preparing to transfer. They should be preparing for the job market. They should be preparing to go into the workplace, transfer to another institution if they choose to pursue their bachelor's or whatnot. So what does those needs look like? It's not about these blanket calls. When you're 45 to 60 credits, that means you shouldn't be on academic notice. You shouldn't be on academic probation, but you do have other types of needs. And so what does it look like even throughout their life cycle here at the institution?
Yeah, I think that makes so much sense. And I think on the flip side, one of the things that I thought was really remarkable and really beautiful that you shared is that your outreach isn't only when students are in need. That you shared that you in your PhD program, a mentor helps you navigate kind of the unknown of your dissertation by forcing you
Yes.
to share your progress. And you've translated that at Macomb into focusing on milestones and celebrating those milestones. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that and why it's so important to slow down and create natural checkpoints and celebrate those wins alongside the student.
Yes, absolutely. Because regardless of where I've landed, and I have the degree, I have the experience, some people are still on that journey. And when you're on a journey, you have to look at the journey as not one big roadmap. I mean, don't look at the journey as just start and I'm done, but looking at that journey as we, as a coordinated effort, one step at a time. You can only put one foot in front of the other. You can only lose 5 pounds at a time. So that continuous improvement and really to condition the student to celebrate that along the way, it will reduce the fact that they don't think that they won. They don't think that they're achieving. They don't think that they're moving forward. So it's really important for us to move that along. I often say support isn't extra, it's strategy.
Mhm.
And so creating those intentional checkpoints allows us to validate their path, validate you have made the right decision to choose this particular program of study. You've made this decision. You did great. This is a considered a gateway course, or this is a critical course in your program and you passed it. So really being intentional about celebrating that, because you don't know what it took for them to even pass that class. You don't know what the sacrifice is or what the things that they went through in their own whether it's at the internal self, or the external pressures that they are also juggling. So creating opportunities for, I call, the psychological momentum, that momentum that they can see and they can voice, and actually articulate those wins. And that's what my mentor actually taught me, because I didn't have anyone in front of me who completed a PhD. I didn't have anyone in front of me that could tell me the rules of the game, but I had to finish. And so my mentor would either make me explain what the expectation was, and she would do it. I would try to figure out, why is she having me explain what is chapter one? What's the purpose of chapter one? She wanted me to ingrain ingrain in the understanding of what the expectation was, and also celebrate once I met that. So when students know, okay, that's a gateway class or that's a critical course in the path that I'm pursuing, then they see themselves as college material. They see themselves as that emerging nurse or that emerging doctor or that emerging engineer, when they see that. And that's, and that's centering around their identity and their sense of belonging. We often talk about sense of belonging is just about the social aspect. Do they feel like they belong at the institution? But we want them to belong in the curriculum, in the academic pathway that they've chosen. And sometimes that gets lost, in my opinion, because we're only focusing on completion. Completion of what? Completion of credit or completion of becoming a future engineer, becoming that nurse or that radio technology, radio technician, or that teacher in our community. So I think it's important for us to build their psychological momentum by reassuring that the path that they're on, is one that we recognize, we're supporting them, but also making sure that they see themselves in that picture as well.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful way. I love the psychological momentum. It's just that positive reinforcement that you're on the right path. Keep on doing it. We're here where you've got this. We're behind you. And it's looking at them as a human on a journey to better their life, to reach a goal versus a number that we're trying to get across a completion percentage finish line, which of course you want those metrics are helpful to know that we're doing the work and we need them, as part. Those performance metrics are a really, really important part of the work we're doing, but to keep it, remember like what's behind those numbers, I think it's so powerful. It's really beautiful. Well, as we are wrapping up our time together, I like to always ask guests if there's anything else that you would like our
Mhm.
audience to know about the work that you're doing that we didn't get a chance to cover today.
Sure. I know you talked a little bit about that becoming a student ready college. I mean, I really enjoyed that book. We read it as a team, as a collective unit, and it really was quite transformative because we all saw ourselves in it, and we're all asking ourselves, what system can we enhance or improve to make the student experience better? Or is this creating a barrier? So we're actually beginning to challenge one another to make sure, I would say challenge and hold each other accountable to ensure that we are moving the needle towards reducing the barriers of our students, responding to their needs and responding to the environment, the changing landscape of higher ed as a whole. So one thing I would probably say is that I really enjoy the work that I do. Student success is is such critical work, it's hard work. And when it's done with intention, when it's done using data informed practice, and a human centered touch, I believe that we can move the needle. We can move the needle of what student success will look like at our institution. So I just want to encourage people to really not be afraid of data. I know that I am a qualitative researcher. I'm more on that touchy-feely side probably, but I also know how critical data is to inform our practices and change our systems and to create that ecosystem that really can promote change at our institutions. And I just really encourage people to accept the role of data, in our field, and also the fact that it is okay to do it with a human-centered touch. And I think that is what we are doing here at Macomb, really, really landing on the coordinated care model and case management model in order so we can reach all of our students, not just the ones that know how to reach out to us, but the ones that I say are often the invisible or the ones that really need our help, the ones that haven't mastered the help seeking behaviors and skills in order to know that we're here to support them. So I just encourage my colleagues, to really take a pause and really ask ourselves, are we doing it with a human-centered touch, but is it data informed? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nelson, for coming on the show. And if you're interested in checking out Student Ready College, we'll link to it in our show notes. And then, of course, you can find it anywhere books are sold. Take care, Dr. Nelson. And we're so happy that we were able to spend time with you today.
Yes, thank you so much.